Okay, so welcome back to the second season of the Start Nuremberg podcast. I am Rodrigo, and today we're talking about decision making, innovation, and building new approaches, everything regarding to, let's say, human insight and analytical intelligence. So today I'm joined by Nina Sukupova.
Sukupova, yeah.
Sukupova. She holds a master's degree in human decision science from Maastricht in the Netherlands. And she's currently completing another master's in international information systems here at the FAU also. So she has also gathered extensive experience across many internships and venture programs, all the way from the FAU Digital Tech Academy, that's actually where we met.
Yeah, that's true. That's where we met.
And the new one is now Unternehmer TUM.
Yeah, Unternehmertum.
Okay, perfect. So Nina, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Rodrigo. Thank you for having me. Thank you for the invite, and I'm excited for the conversation.
Sweet. So I first want to focus a little more on your journey, so more the inspirations and what influenced your decision to pursue now 2 masters. So how do you make sense of that in terms of now from the decision science to now the information systems? What influenced this decision?
Yeah, so I think it traces back a little bit to my childhood. I've always had this interest. I was always interested in business topics and then also in behavioral topics, psychology, stuff like that. I did my bachelor's in international business here in Germany as well. Okay. And then when I was doing my bachelor's thesis, it was on decision-making process in purchase behavior. So basically how people decide what they're going to buy in the whole kind of steps of the process. And that was super interesting. And I thought, wow, maybe I missed my shot. Maybe I should have studied something a bit more different. And then I was looking around for different study programs, and I found one in Maastricht, this human decision science, which is, I think, pretty unique in Europe. So I thought, yeah, I just have to do it. Even if I never work in behavioral science or anything similar, I was just very interested in that. Okay. And that's kind of that one part. And the second part, I guess, which fills in the bigger picture, which you already said with the information systems. Yeah, so it is about the human part of decision making, and then information systems is giving me a little bit of the analytical part of decision making, which I hope can enable me to be a holistic decision maker.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. I see that people want to have, especially nowadays, you want to have a lot of your, let's say, personal leverage in whenever you're going into a business or starting a entrepreneurship program. So it makes sense that you want to have a lot of the, let's say, the soft skills really at the foundational level, like you said, behavioral science. And now, well, everything is big data and IT, so it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and I think especially what you said, there are people who are very good experts in one area or very good experts in the other area, but oftentimes you see that people miss one or the other aspect, so they don't really combine those. And it is exactly this intersection that excited me and that I thought, okay, this is maybe where my niche could be.
Yeah, and how was the transition in terms of, we briefly mentioned a little bit on the difference between the German education system and when you first went to the Netherlands.
Yeah.
How was that difference?
Yeah, so Maastricht is known for the problem-based learning, PBL. So that means you basically have very small groups of students, and you don't have lectures as such. You learn a lot from research papers, and every week there is someone from your class preparing the class for you. And it is very much discussion-oriented. Yeah, so a lot of kind of discussion and very little input from the academia or from the professors there. So it is very engaging, and I really enjoyed it. I really, was looking forward to preparing for the classes because I was reading all the research and all these kind of things, which is a bit different from FAU. I mean, you yourself study at FAU, which is a representation of normal German university, where you're fed a lot of input and you kind of have to make sense of it yourself, and then eventually you have some kind of exam or you write a paper, and that's it. So I feel like I struggled a little bit when I came back because I was really excited to learn and to discuss and to have conversations. But yeah, I mean, I guess either approach has its advantages.
Yeah. Also, I think it would be, maybe it's relevant to the way the education is presented, right? So if it's a lot on on human decision making and data science, they want to have it very much on that collaboration, right?
Yeah.
How it was in the Netherlands, and maybe, well, it makes more sense maybe for like strictly IT topics to be, well, hey, you're independent on this, and there's going to be a lot more research on this, right?
Yeah, I guess that's true. But in the university, it was a general approach to everything. But yeah, as you said, especially in the decision science, where we discuss a lot, where you also bring in your own experience, because that's how you learn as well, right? So you kind of track, what did I do? What is my own experience? To what is research saying? You kind of discuss about that. So in that field, it definitely made a lot of sense to use that kind of approach.
Okay. And now that you've completed one master's, also your bachelor's in Germany,
Yep.
and now you're with your second master's.
Yeah.
Where was this spark that really started for you to start with entrepreneurship programs, getting involved more in innovation? Do you remember when this timeline really pinpoints this?
Yeah, so I mean, I already said one a little bit of embarrassing and irrelevant childhood anecdote,
Okay.
but I think it comes really from there. I remember when I was 6 and I stole some fruits from my grandma's garden, and I recruited kids from the street and I forced them, to sell it to strangers. And I guess that was my first entrepreneurial venture.
Wow.
And ever since, it was always this little bit of on and off, and I always had, ideas. And with 18, I was selling some kind of bracelets, and it was never really organized in a way or structured, but I always had this kind of interest.
Okay.
And what I noticed through my studies was that there are so many areas which you can apply entrepreneurship on. And there are so many things which you can do. And I guess that was also what motivated me to do this kind of program. So I started with DTA, which was really good because it gave me the overview of the whole, startup process. How do I do this? How do I start? Where do I start? What do I do? What are the steps I need to take? And now I'm trying to kind of combine those things. So see where I can apply that in my life. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. And how did you find out about the DTA? And this was, of course, once you came back for your second master's.
Yeah.
Was there also an innovation, let's say, program in the Netherlands, or this was less interesting at this time?
Yeah. So actually, that's a very good question because there wasn't any. And I think this is one thing which I appreciate a lot about Germany, that they're trying to combine the insights from academia with real world applications, which is done through entrepreneurship. And from day one, I have seen at FAU all these kind of programs and possible mentorships things. And I mean, you know it yourself, right?
Yeah.
Because you also joined DTA. So so already in my first semester, I saw that kind of advertisement. I saw it in a newsletter in my email, I think. And then I thought, wow, okay, maybe this is a sign for me to actually formalize everything which I have done. And yeah, that's how it came to that.
Okay, yeah. And also, this is more in the academic and the innovation, but talking about your internships and also, let's say, your extracurricular work, what would be the knowledge transfer? Like, is there something you can pinpoint or anything that you've reflected on that you've really learned, let's say, from these experiences? I refer to, I think you had an experience in controlling, you had an experience in another, let's say, more corporate job, but is there something that you can take away from this, if you remember?
Yeah, so I have been lucky to be able to work at different places and in different areas, different industries. So this domain-specific knowledge and role-specific knowledge is something which I always had to learn. But if I had to connect it a little bit to entrepreneurship or these kind of things, that kind of knowledge, I would say it's a lot more about the mindset. So when you are starting your own startup, and I mean, you've been through the whole journey, it's a lot about yourself. It's a lot about ownership. It's a lot about proactivity.
Yeah.
And I think that would be the mindset and the approach, which I also tried to apply in whatever job internship I had. So to kind of think independently about the issues which are there and then try to solve them from my own initiative, kind of.
And was there an area, or let's say in a specific function of the business, let's say it's more finance or more in strategy, or we also mentioned briefly controlling, but any of these experiences that you would want to do again, or maybe you see it also it could drastically change, let's say in 5-10 years because of AI. So how do these areas impact your view on this?
Yeah, that's a good question. I never really thought about it. But I think personally, I'm very much intrigued by strategy and strategic decision making.
Yeah.
I mean, you can see that's kind of like the red thread throughout my path.
Yeah.
And yeah, when it comes to AI and decision making, strategic decision making, how that's done in top management, how that's done in corporations, what role AI plays in all of that, I think that is something which would motivate me to go back to corporate and to kind of see how that can be played out, how that works, and to be part of definition of those strategies, of those concepts, how that can be done. So yeah, I would say that is
Yeah,
the area.
exactly. That's I find it really fascinating for me also. I want to get to know better these kind of decision making processes, because it would seem to me my preference is that there should still be someone, that human element that is making the final decision, right? We can't just leverage and just let's say outsource all our decision making
Yeah.
to the AI, but nonetheless there must be some sort of middle ground, right?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, you see AI as kind of, or like those kind of models as certain black box. So you don't sometimes really know how the decision is made, or you don't really understand the process. And in many cases, the decisions are then also biased. An example of that was probably the recruitment process of Amazon, when they trained the model on the previous recruitment data, and then it was biased towards women. And of course, humans can be biased too.
Yep.
But I think the issue here is really that we assign certain kind of objectivity to AI, and we take it often at face value.
Yeah.
So whatever AI says, well, I guess it makes sense, it's objective. So you kind of take that and you don't really make further thoughts. And I think that's the danger. And that's something I would like to be a part of, and be the human in the loop, and understand where the line is and how we can integrate both.
Yeah. And also I keep hearing so much about like the response you get is only as good as your prompt, right?
Yeah.
So if you're just feeding, let's call it garbage to the LLM, then it's not gonna give you a very nuanced answer. It's gonna give you whatever you have input into it, right?
Yeah.
And you mentioned a lot about like biases. That's really, really critical, especially you have this foundation, right, from the let's say more human behavior and human decision making. So how can you make sense of removing these biases also for these future decision, let's say, models? How do you go about that?
What kind of biases do you mean? Do you mean cognitive biases,
Yes.
human biases?
Yeah.
And you mean in interaction with AI models, or? Well, okay, that's that's a tough question, because as humans we're prone to many kind of biases.
Sure.
And I guess it would be very difficult, to say right now, okay, this is the approach which you have to take to interact with LLMs or with AI properly, not to be involved in kind of biased process. But I guess it is a personal responsibility of every person to kind of reflect on that, how they interact with the systems and how they treat them as well. This is a little bit of off topic, but recently I read a study from MIT, and that was about how actually we deteriorate in our cognitive abilities with when we use AI. So
yes.
that's also something which definitely needs to be still researched a bit more, and where we also need to personally take the responsibility and say, okay, what effect does it have on me when I interact with AI, and when I use it, when I outsource my own decision making and my own thinking processes to those models?
Yeah, I completely agree. That was a really interesting study. I had heard about it.
Yep.
That it's, if you're starting out, let's say you have a strategy you want to form, some sort of problem that you're facing in business, if you immediately just go, then that's not helping you in the long run, of course. Like, you are directly outsourcing it. So it's still recommended to start out not using it, maybe drafting out some sort of outline, talking to your team members, and then in the last step you can use AI if you really want to, let's say.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, as you said, it really depends how you use it. What I like to do sometimes is to use this voice function or this chat function with ChatGPT. So basically, when I kind of talk about my ideas and I give immediate feedback back, which is more of a creative process. So I help myself to organize my thoughts and ideas before I present it to someone. And I think that is helpful, and it is one of the ways which you can use it, but it's definitely not something, as you said, when I would just have a certain problem to go to AI immediately and then wanted to solve it for me.
Yeah.
That would not be optimal, probably.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. That's a really interesting topic because I want to go more in depth in that right now. It's that voice chat or that feature is great. I agree. You can just, if let's say we're maybe professional yappers, as we say, you can keep talking about your creative process and maybe some sort of continuous feedback until it's more refined, right? So I think that's really good.
Yeah, 100%.
And let's say for all these kinds of topics, I'm referring to academic and internships and also extracurricular. When you think of these, is there for yourself a personal KPI that you think of? What do you use to make sure that you are improving? What sort of value you are adding? Do you have your personal KPI?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I think it partly comes back to my personal perception of progress. So many times people measure themselves against certain external KPIs. But what I feel like is the most important for me, it's this feeling of, am I progressing? Am I becoming a better person? Am I growing personally? So how do I feel? Personal check-in kind of thing. So that would be the first thing. The second KPI, if we can call it like that, is probably the impact I can make on people, or if I can help someone, if I can help optimize certain kind of process. And it can be something small, you know. It can be an example from my previous job would be that my boss used to have this horrendous task, which he would spend 5 hours a week on, and then if I could optimize it and make it 1 hour in a way by writing a certain, you know, script process, something like that, I would already feel like I'm progressing. And then the last point, and I think that's probably the most, not the most important, but kind of a feasible point for myself, it's the ability to solve problems, more complex problems, more quickly. So if I think about a problem I had maybe a few years back, how fast I solved it and what was the result, what was the impact of it. And if I have a similar problem right now, of a similar magnitude, if I manage to solve it more quickly, more efficiently, with less negative impact, then I feel like I'm definitely making some kind of progress.
Yeah, like that's well said. I tend to agree a lot with the problem solving, especially, but there's also there's always nuance in these kinds of processes. You know, it's also very individual because I also want to think for myself. Yes, maybe I can be more efficient in the problem solving, but there are sometimes problems that you just have to take a break from. And also there's studies to say that if you take a break or if you sleep on it or if you take a walk, especially a walk, that's been very useful for me. Maybe a new perspective it showcases itself and that can help you go forward.
Yeah, definitely.
You know?
Or if you go to sauna,
Okay.
I also,
sauna.
I also,
That's a new one.
I also read about it somewhere that when you're in sauna, basically your blood circulation is faster, and your decision or thinking processes are also faster or more efficient in a way. So some people even learn or study in sauna when they have to study for an exam.
Wow. Okay, that is a new one. I've not heard of that one.
Yeah, try it out.
And for still in this topic and relating it to our work experiences, but also how we measure our value creation or our strategic problem solving, where's this line for you in terms of being very disciplined in these kinds of things, but also not going too much into, let's say, toxic productivity? How do you manage this so you don't go in the latter, I want to say.
Yeah, definitely. I love that question. And I think this is something which we talk about way too little, especially in the LinkedIn times. Sometimes, you know, I just like scroll to that and I'm thinking, okay, it's today I need to delete LinkedIn. Because I feel like there is this notion that people measure their personal value directly with their productivity. And you're not your productivity, you're a human being, and you already deliver value by being here, by existing.
Yeah.
So this is the first, I would say, an issue which I see with this whole notion. But of course, if you want to achieve certain kind of goals, you need to be also disciplined. So it's kind of this internal struggle, which I have also with myself. And the way I solve this, and it's not easy, I try to give myself certain kind of frameworks or tools or deadlines to work on things.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I try to give myself the softness and the space to wander off a little bit. And I can give you an example of that. Just recently, I've been studying for one of my last exams, and I was rewatching a video recording, and I kept on, like studying, understanding, and then at some point, super randomly, I had a startup idea. I thought, okay, this is a great business idea. I need to think about it. And at that point, I could have, kept on pushing for my productivity and then finishing the task which I was supposed to. Or, and that's what I did, I could have taken a little bit of detour to explore this idea. And I took an hour and a half to research a little bit, to, talk to chat, to kind of like organize my thoughts. And I really made use of this momentum, of this passionate moment which I had. And I really enjoyed that, and maybe if I didn't do that at that point, I wouldn't explore that idea later. Maybe I wouldn't be motivated anymore. So I think you need to give yourself space, because sometimes these creative moments come from these kind of distractions. But yeah, at the same time, if you need to log in, if you have deadline in 2 hours, there is no way. You probably just need to log in, and that's the balance you need to find.
Yeah, that's very, very beautifully said, because I also, it really relates to this creative process I'm trying to formulate for myself. And if you have some sort of idea, this, like, let's say, eureka moment, right? You have to write it down, or you have to jot it down in notes, something, because then I think people tend to forget.
Yeah.
Right. And you're very right in your assessment. Let's say that if you're so focused on the productivity, like, hey, I have to study for 6 hours, and let's say you're in hour 4 and you have this, well, okay, do I really want to take another 2, or maybe I should explore this for 30 minutes and then I can go back? And at the end of the day, I mean, if you're content with this, and maybe it goes back also to what we talked about, how you have your personal KPI, right? So, okay, I studied for a little less, let's say 5 or maybe 4.5, but I had a really cool idea that I researched for 30 minutes, and I can expand on it,
Yeah, 100%. And I think it also depends, what your goals in life are.
Yeah.
And if you think about the impact of, and that's how I thought about it later, if you think about the impact of 1 additional hour of studying in 10 years on yourself versus exploring an idea, which might be the idea potentially, because you never know, the impact in 10 years of the hour of studying would not be 1% as big as, if you decided to pursue that idea and work on it. So I think you really also need to take that aspect into consideration.
Yeah, that's well said. For now, deviating a little bit more on the programs that you're working on right now, especially, we said Unternehmer TUM, and a little bit we mentioned on the Exist Women Scholarship, I believe, and also where we met in the DTA. How do these programs, how have they influenced you specifically? And also, like, can you talk a little bit more on the first 2 that I mentioned?
Yeah, so I love that question. You have super good questions. I like
Thank
that. I guess the first thing that comes to mind is the surroundings and the environment, including the people which are there in the ecosystem in the program.
Yeah.
So people often say that you are the average of people you hang out with or you spend time with.
Yes.
We can agree on that. And joining these kind of programs gives you access to brilliant people and people who are often like-minded. So in a way, it motivates you to work on your idea, because you see people working on their ideas and you feel like, okay, this is cool, this is actually something. And of course, the whole processes, the creative process of it, the coaches and all of that, that's very cool. So I would say that's one of the biggest points. And then yeah, of course, also the raw knowledge which you get from there. So as I said already from DTA, I learned the whole startup process,
Yeah.
how that works, and immediate feedback. So those coaches, people, peers, they give you feedback right away, which is very, very valuable, especially at early stages.
Yeah, especially for I remember my time in the DTA, I was equally fascinated with the mentors, of course,
Yeah.
but also the participants. And also in something like STARTed Nuremberg, I've met Ansad, who has also, we've had really, really cool conversations. So, and he's just one example of the many that I've met in STARTed Nuremberg.
Yeah.
So it still relates to a lot of these, it's like a new trending topic. It's like innovation ecosystems.
Yeah.
Right? It can be nonprofit, it can be actual ventureship programs, but there's clearly a pull for our generation that we want to, or we're gravitated, let's say, to go to these, right?
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, at the end, it boils down to, do I have fun and am I happy, and does that fulfill me to do these kind of things? And if the answer is yes, then just do it. And I can say for myself, I love it. I love joining these things and spending my time there.
Sweet. And also, I want to do a quick fire round, let's say.
Okay.
So just whatever is the first thing that pops into your head, and it'll just be 3, but it also all relates to what we've been talking about. Do you have a favorite AI or analytical tool that you use?
Power BI.
Power BI.
Analytical tool, yeah.
Okay. And what is the book, thinker, or idea that has influenced you the most?
Tough one. I think Best Lerman, Wear Sunscreen. So it's kind of a song. Maybe
I have not heard it. Okay.
Yeah, listen to it, really.
Okay.
It might change your life or not, but it's basically just a set of rules, or maybe not rules, but kind of ideas, how to live your life in a very simple way. And sometimes I re-listen to it. It helps me ground. It helps me kind of stay humble. And yeah, I love that. So yeah, Best Lerman, Wear Sunscreen.
Okay. And then lastly, what's more fulfilling for you, being an angel investor or being a startup mentor?
Startup mentor, I think.
Nice.
Yeah.
Then I want to slowly now deviate now towards our end, unfortunately. But I want to first thank you, Nina, for taking the time to talk about your journey. And there's so many topics I think we can still talk about with decision science and information systems and AI. It's very clear to me that you're very curious and you have a really extensive human-centric design thinking that it's really impactful, I think, that people are interested in. So thank you.
Thank you so much for the conversation. I very much enjoyed it. I love the format, so good luck with everything, and I hope this reaches some people.
Sweet. Thank you.
Thank you.
Then we can conclude. Thank you for your time.